Well, good evening. Good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday, July 18th, 7 p.m., and we welcome you to today's meeting. We're happy to have you here, whether in person, on Zoom, or watching one of our live feeds, period. We hope you'll continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. Thank you for participating today. Next item will be number 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand up and join us. Thank you again to everyone who is joining us tonight. Before we move through the agenda, I want to mention and remind everyone about our rules of decorum, which are in place to ensure our meetings move along well and to help everyone feel comfortable sharing their comments. A copy of the full rules of decorum are available at the door, and our staff will post the link in Zoom. This brings us to item A4, and approving the work session meeting minutes of May 16th, 2023 and May 25th, 2023, as well as the formal meeting minutes of May 16th, 2023. I look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Puy and seconded by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And I'm an aye as well. That passes unanimously. We're now on item A5, and we will hear remarks from our newest council member, Sarah Young.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to make a few personal remarks just in follow-up to my recent appointment. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Sarah Young. I am proud to have the opportunity to represent District 7 here on the Salt Lake City Council. With me this evening, I'd just like to recognize a few family members. And rather than just addressing them in terms of who they are in my life, I'd also like to highlight how they relate to shaping the representative that I really hope to be related to the council and some of our decisions and action items. So first, my father is here. So William Reeves, if you want to wave. So I'm proud to say my father is a civil engineer. So I had the pleasure of growing up with road projects, and anyone who has been through District 7 appreciates that that is a key aspect of what is happening related to our residents and as well our businesses in regards to the needs of the overall district. He taught me an appreciation for systems thinking, and I'm just very grateful to say that at the age of 8, I had the opportunity to be out on road projects, looking at the different layers of sediment that needed to exist in terms of setting me up for success today. So thanks, Dad. Next, I want to recognize my mom, Denise Reeves, if you want to wave. She's the one taking photos. Thank you for your understanding. As a part of that, my mom currently serves as a charge nurse with University Hospital, as well as a professor with the University of Utah College of Nursing. And my mom really represents for me one of the important aspects here at the council related to public safety. She really looks to keep the moms, new moms, as well as the children being born into this world and the future residents of Salt Lake safe, and just appreciate the care in which she does that, and really taught me the value of making sure that we're looking out for everyone around us, both their health and well-being. Next up, we have my husband, so Mike Roberts. So Mike serves as an assistant principal in Murray School District, but we won't hold that against him here in Salt Lake. I have to say that although I could go on for hours about Mike and his passion for education, knowledge, and kind of building opportunities for our youth, it's actually his focus on keeping our yard in immaculate condition that has really helped to highlight some of the work that our council does related to parks and recreation. I will admit our yard would be non-existent without my amazing husband, and I just appreciate the fact that you've really taught me the value of being a contributing community member and making sure that we hold the highest standards, not just for ourselves, but also in support of our neighborhood and the overall welcoming feel. Last but not least, I have my son in the audience, Jake Young, if you'd like to wave. So Jake, for me, represents the children and our future here in Salt Lake City. So all of the decisions that we as council members make really look towards setting ourselves up for success, but not just for the residents of today, but also for the children for our future. And I'm incredibly grateful for the moment I had a bit of cold feet about going for this opportunity. It was that young man who encouraged me to do it and to come forward, and he was with me when I filed my application for this position. So thank you to Jake. Finally, I do have 2 sisters, a brother, and a ton of nieces and nephews, but this is where we highlight fiscal responsibility. And so we're not going to take the time to thank all of those people in terms of just keeping our meeting moving related to action. I want to just end with, I appreciate the opportunity to serve the residents of District 7 and the greater system of Salt Lake City. We live in an amazing place, and I look forward to cooperating with each of you council members as well as our constituents in terms of continuing on that great trajectory. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. This brings us to the council public hearings. If you'd like to comment on a public hearing today, we're accepting comments in person or online on Zoom. If you need to speak with our staff, please select Isaac Canedo from the list of participants. And if you need to, you can also raise your hand in Zoom to indicate that you need something from the host. Taylor Hill, our staff, will be calling those who wish to comment based on the order we receive the names. If you're on Zoom, please unmute your mic when Taylor calls your name. We will start with our public hearings. Our first item, B1, is regarding a grant application, plug-in electric vehicle make-ready project funding. And I think, I'm so sorry, I don't, hold on one moment. We have Sylvia here for our, for a little bit of a brief on that item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The city periodically applies for and receives grants which fund some city programs. Each grant will receive a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to learn about the grants. And tonight there is one grant, as you mentioned. It is the Plug-in Electric Vehicle Make-Ready Project Funding Grant, which would fund the installation of electrical infrastructure for 2 public e-vehicle charging stations at 4 West Side locations, including the Day Riverside Library, Riverside Park, Rosewood Park, and the Regional Athletic Complex. As a reminder, these are items which the city has applied for to fund programs and projects. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sylvia. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have anyone registered for this item.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yep, go ahead.
I move that the council close the public hearing and refer item B1 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
Have a Councilmember Pui moved that and seconded by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Those opposed? It's unanimous and that passes. Our next item, B2, is regarding an ordinance at 1782 South, 1600 East, zoning map amendment and master plan amendment. Before we begin taking comments, I will first turn the time over to Brian Fulmer, Council Staff Policy and Analyst, to give a short introduction. I can hear you.
Is this on? Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
go ahead.
This is a proposal to amend the zoning map for the above-mentioned property from its current R1 7000 or single-family residential zoning to SR3 or special development pattern residential. The proposal would also amend the Sugar House Community Master Plan future land use map from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The petitioner's stated objective is to construct a home on the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are about 15 people here to speak to this item. The first will be Rebecca Davis, followed by Dean Thomas, and then Larry Wright. Rebecca is here in person.
My name is Rebecca Davis, and I live at 1564 East Blaine Avenue. I'm strongly opposed to the requested rezone amendment from R1 7000 to SR3 and the Sugar House Neighborhood Plan amendment for the property located at 1782 South, 1600 East. The staff report states that it would be difficult to fit more than one single-family home on the property given its configuration. Therefore, it makes no sense to change the zoning from R1 7000 to SR3. Also, once the lot has been made legal and gone through the process of being subdivided and a planned development process to make it legal, a single-family home can be built on the lot at that time. The current R1 7000 zoning allows for single-family homes and duplexes which exist in this low-density neighborhood. Approving the rezone amendments for SR3 zoning would allow for medium-density housing to be built on this lot, which can't accommodate more than one single-family home. This lot actually functions as a rear lot to the duplex in front of it, and it has challenging access, the lot does. The lot doesn't meet the goals in the Sugar House plan for flag lots and for infill. Also, the property doesn't meet the intent of the location parameters for medium density classification in the Sugar House future land use map. The requested rezone amendments should be denied. Thank you.
And next will be Dean Thomas, followed by Larry Wright, and then Anthony Arasi. Dean is here in person.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council and Mayor Mendenhall. Good to see you. So I live at the property at 1580 Blaine Avenue. I've lived there approximately 23 years now. I've grown up in that Sugar House neighborhood, and I think it would be ill-advised to change this zoning due to the fact that if this is approved, it opens the door for other property owners. Some people could buy 2 or 3 houses and start putting up heavy density housing with more traffic, more residents. We are very much united in the fact that we all love the single family homes and the lifestyle we live in Sugar House, and to add more apartments is really not what the city plan is all about. This has been rejected more than once. We're also concerned about traffic and parking out on the street, because there really isn't any plan for additional tenants to park anywhere but out on the street. And we solely oppose this, and I thank you for taking my time to listen to this.
Next, we will hear from Larry Wright, followed by Anthony Arasi, and then Ann Wright. Larry is here in person.
My name is Larry Wright. I live 2 houses west of this property. I did send each council member an email, and I want to thank those who responded. At least I feel like my concerns and were heard, and that's all we can ask. This is a challenging lot. As I listened to the work session today, the thing that came to my mind is I understand the idea of a single family home, and I understand that there's a need for single family homes. I don't believe this is a particular lot that draws that to where you'd have a neighborhood. It is surrounded by backyards. Every one of those houses could potentially put an ADU around that property, and it wouldn't really make it a very livable space, in my opinion. The rezoning sets a bad precedent for other people to be able to rezone. The rezoning would open up that lot to have a possibility of three units on it, a duplex and an ADU. I know that's not necessarily what the plan is. Sometimes plans change, and once you rezone it, you can't go back. So thank you for your efforts and listening to all of us tonight. Thank you.
Next will be Anthony Arasi, followed by Ann Wright, and then Peter Gamvoros. Anthony is here in person.
Hi, everyone. I didn't know there was a difference between the briefing and public hearing. I intended to be here and wasn't able to present like I wanted to earlier. I apologize. I applied for this rezone well before the ADU was even an option. And when Kelsey told me to abandon my application, I considered it. But at the end of the day, a home made more sense for me, and here's why. With a home, it is less of a financial burden on me, as I could use the lot as collateral towards a construction loan. And a separate home and a lot would be an opportunity to build equity for me, separate from my mother's duplex. Again, I'm not a developer. I've just taken advice on how to move forward, and here is where I'm at. It's been said that I have no support from staff or anyone else. I want to remind the council that the Planning Commission was a 6-5 vote, one vote away from a positive recommendation. So I don't come here with a landslide negative recommendation. In fact, I'm here with a proposal that's asking questions for a unique lot for unique times. Thank you for your time.
Next will be Ann Wright, followed by Peter Gamvoros, and then Evangelos Neophos. Ann is here in person.
Thank you for listening to me and to us. My name is Ann Wright. I live at 1554 East Blaine Avenue, 2 doors west of 1572 East Blaine, which is the parcel connected to the subject property at 1782 South, 1600 East. I support the City Planning Commission's decision to deny the proposed zoning amendment. I have read the staff report and agree that spot zoning this particular parcel is not consistent with city policies. The subject property is roughly 46 feet wide at its widest and 35 feet wide at its narrowest and 120 feet deep. It is highly suitable to its current use as a backyard for the duplex at 1572 East Blaine and to provide parking for that duplex. It is not underutilized land. To change the land use designation from low to medium density is not in keeping with the neighborhood, and to rezone it as SR3 opens up undesirable possibilities for excessive future development. I understand that the city is trying to increase housing stock, and I support that effort in general, but the amendments include, and I'm quoting from the staff report, developing an illegally subdivided parcel in an existing neighborhood. It is not consistent with the city plan's initiatives, and on a personal level, the anticipated development would adversely impact 5 adjacent neighbors in terms of privacy and access at the least. Thank you very much.
And next is Peter Gamvoros, followed by Evangelos Neophos, and then Christina Robb. Peter is here in person.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you, Council. I'm here in support of the applicant. I'm longtime family friends with both Anthony and Stephanie, and when Anthony brought this up, his plans with this lot several years ago, I was very intrigued. I've been involved in development processes here in the city, and I have a really large and personal interest on how development continues to move here and how land use does. So Anthony came here with one idea, and it was like, hey, I think I can build a home here. And to I think the average person, that would seem pretty reasonable. But to me, who's been involved in development, I was like, oh, this is going to be challenging. So I've followed him through, and I've followed all of the development processes that he's gone through, including the discussion today with council. And it looked like council had 2 things to consider, like with any rezone, and that was the philosophical question as to, does this zone make sense? Would a single-family home make sense here? And I think that's pretty obvious. But then there's the other question as to process, and it's a legitimate question. But I think watching the process that Anthony has gone through to get this done, watching the intricacies and often the confusion and the knots along the way to do a really simple thing should speak for itself. I don't think that processes should get in the way of common sense. And that comes from, obviously, someone who's involved in the development community and someone who likes to see things built and someone who likes not to see the processes get mixed up along the way. But when you look at the community plans, including the Sugar House plan, infill development is always listed as a major value. And our processes always get in the way of difficult lots making infill development work. I would just urge the council, again, if the applicant has found a process, though it's unique, consider it because it fills goals that are more important than processes. Thank you, council.
Next will be Evangelos Neothos, followed by Christina Robb, and then Camille Thorpe. Evangelos is here in person.
Hello, my name's Angelo. I'm an architect and a longtime friend of Anthony's as well. This is a proposal that I really support because it asks some good questions during some very unique times at that. Why are we enforcing old rules that no longer serve our citizens' needs in this neighborhood? Why are we letting scarce urban land go unused? Why are we keeping Anthony from building his first home in such a fabulous neighborhood that's so highly desired? Everything about our built environment is created. Our regulations are created by us as well, and we shouldn't forget that they can be changed by us. Forgetting that we created our world is the biggest reason keeping us from changing our quality of life. Make no mistake, however, Anthony has followed the rules, and he's followed staff's recommendations on how to apply for his proposal since day one. Anthony came to me as well about 2 years ago, before an ADU on this lot was ever an option. Because of Salt Lake's growth and inflation, the housing market has gotten out of hand, making it harder than ever to buy a home, let alone build one. If they haven't been forced out of the state already, citizens have been forced to rent space more than ever, and not very good space at that. As you all know, our city has a history of questioning its past. Lately, there's been a lot of talk about accessory dwelling units, missing middle housing, and mixed-use spaces. Salt Lake is obviously advocating for building differently, and in a lot of ways, it's succeeding. We need to start thinking about infill development as well. Think about all the lots out there like Anthony's, which are currently considered unusable because our old rules are holding us back. Anthony isn't asking to build a high-density apartment complex, nor duplex, nor any kind of industrial space, not even rental space. Anthony just wants to build a small home for himself. Now's the time to be resourceful. We don't have a lot of land left, and we can't waste it. Salt Lake needs to ask itself when and why were its current rules established, and can it afford to enforce rules which no longer meet its citizens' needs in this neighborhood? Thank you for your time.
Next, we will hear from Christina Robb, followed by Camille Thorpe, and then Judy Short. Christina is here in person.
Good evening. I apologize in advance because I'm feeling very emotional. It has been a long day on the streets of Salt Lake doing crisis intervention, and I happened to catch the City Council work session in which I heard a little bit about process. Now, I am here not to deny this request or speak against this request. I am here to support process. A couple of things worried me. One was anytime country of origin comes into discussion in a zoning question becomes difficult for me. In addition to that, anytime that I see supporters of a zoning application that represent a single tier of real estate developers, et cetera, also brings questions to my mind. But that still does not make me speak in opposition. What does make me worry is that we're getting ready to face a similar rezone in some of the lowest income areas of Elko that are surrounded by short-term rentals and currently house Latino families in multiple generations. So if we don't uphold process across the city, and as a chair of East Liberty Park, we can't rely on you and our planning staff to be equitable in these decisions and make sure that the rules apply to everyone equally, then I'm going to have a really hard time moving forward with, talking to my constituents about displacement when they're being displaced. So I please ask you to think about process and make sure that it's your number one thing that you think of when you are applying zoning to individuals across Salt Lake in all of our cities or all of our neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Next will be Camille Thorpe, followed by Judy Short, and then Turner Bitten. Camille is here in person.
Thank you, and thank you, City Council, for being here all day and all night. Let's see. I brought this so I wouldn't say anything stupid. Let's see how that goes. My name is Camille Thorpe, and I live at 1784 South, 1600 East. I own this home. First of all, I wanted to say welcome, Councilmember Young, to the district. Amending a master plan is a big deal, and it was created to last and to guide your interpretations of it, of what fits the plan and what does not. This amendment asks to change the future land map from low density to medium residential, and that describes those medium zones oriented towards commercial corridors. And if I've understood that correctly, the example that was presented seemed like it was suitable for that area, but it doesn't seem to match this area. This neighborhood is not near a commercial area, so let's see, nor distinctive site locations. Staff this afternoon indicated that single-family homes could be sold separately, so that's a concern for me as a neighbor. It opens this parcel up for multiple structures, like Larry Wright explained. I know that it could, pass hands and become quite a different neighborhood. Let's see. A lot of my comments have been already expressed by my neighbors as well as by planning and staff. So let's see, I guess what really stood out to me was it's not a unique lot because it's not a lot, and one lot is not going to fit into the 5-year plan, and yet this one unit opens the doors for many other units on this property. So let's see, the zoning in this area is not meeting the future needs, and I'm really? Oh. There's a lovely backyard that's being used. It's not unused. Okay.
Thank you. If you have additional comments, you can always write them down, and our staff can bring it to us. Thank you.
Next will be Judy Short, followed by Turner Bitten, and then Simon Harrison. Judy's here in person.
Good afternoon. I'm Judy Short, Land Use Chair for Sugar House. And this is a very difficult issue. This may be a case where a block was platted back in the day and all the lots were laid out in an orderly fashion. But now it appears this parcel is where a previous property owner recorded deeds without making sure the lots met the requirements for a subdivision and without a subdivision amendment. The city's been working for years on a series of housing ordinances to find a way to be able to build new housing in areas of the city to achieve the goal of 50,000 new units. We desperately need those, but that does not mean that we take every little corner and turn it into a buildable lot. I believe the SR3 zone was designed to be used in empty areas of the city to develop new housing that is smaller in scale and affordable, rather than being plugged into every empty, tiny parcel that exists. This parcel is long and narrow, landlocked with the exception of access through 2 alleys, which are about 19 feet wide, which is less than the 22-foot requirement. One of my big concerns is whether the fire department can get their trucks or emergency vehicles up that alley and then be able to get them out again. The petitioner says he wants to build an affordable home he can raise a family in. We don't think anything that is new construction is really affordable because materials are so expensive now and it's difficult to find people who have time in their schedule to even build them. They're all booked out several years ahead. And then I hear he could build a duplex and an ADU on this lot. The parking for those 3 units would be on the lot where the current duplex is. This existing affordable duplex, according to the neighbors, rents for a total of $5,600 currently for both units together. The main floor is 1,400 square feet. So these aren't huge ones. I think this is spot zoning and you should deny it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Next will be Turner Bitten, followed by Simon Harrison, and then Victoria Gorman. Turner is here in person.
Good evening. My name is Turner Bitten. I'm here representing SLC Neighbors for More Neighbors. I'm here to speak in favor of the zoning change. In its 2019 Building a Better Beehive report, the Utah Foundation concluded that encouraging infill development can help to efficiently accommodate growth while preserving and enhancing the character of a place and improving the tax base. Infill development is good for neighborhoods and good for our city. The proposed rezone you are considering is a clear-cut example of that infill development and how it can make a neighborhood stronger. In fact, the majority of master plans throughout the city call for this type of infill development. Deferring to the Sugar House master plan is kind of a joke, because if the master plan were a child, it would be turning 18 this year and probably voting in the mayoral election. What we're seeing as a result of land use decisions that have left land underutilized. So you're all often told in these public hearings that folks are here to oppose a development because it's too big, it's too dense, it changes the character of a neighborhood. And I think what you're hearing tonight kind of reiterates the fact that that just isn't true. It doesn't matter what you try to build. It doesn't matter if it's a single family home. It doesn't matter if it's a duplex. It doesn't matter if it's 10 stories. The same conversation, the same arguments against will be made regardless of whether it's a family for a home, or a home for a family, or whether it's a large apartment complex. Tonight's rezone isn't going to solve Salt Lake City's housing crisis, but it can put an end to a 20-year cycle of kicking the can down the road on one specific property. So I'm going to end on a question for all of you. In July of 2023, given all that we know about the desperate need we have for housing in Salt Lake City, especially family housing, is it really in the interest of the city to have this lot continue to act as storage for private vehicles instead of a house for family? Thank you.
Next will be Simon Harrison, followed by Victoria Gorman, and then Marley Bramble. Simon's here in person.
Hey, good evening, Council, and welcome, Sarah. It's interesting the last person just talked about, no one sort of wants to do this, but the person who's actually applied for this didn't actually bother to come and talk to any of the residents. He never made a single attempt to come and talk to any of us to see what might be acceptable to the people that actually live there. I actually back onto that property, and if you give permission for him to build, we don't know what he's going to build because he's not submitted any plans. If he was to put plans for a single family home of reasonable size with a basement, so it's not 27 feet high, overlooking the back of my property within 15 feet, most probably we would be okay with that. But the problem is he hasn't actually produced anything, and we know developers, and he claims not to be one, will do bait and switch always. So we don't want lots of sort of condos or small apartments, because that's not what the neighborhood is about. We moved there 2 years ago with the intention of staying there and living in a very low density family neighborhood. So we don't necessarily oppose this, but he needs to come back with plans, and firm plans at that. So that's my ask. If you really feel that you want to approve this, do so, but do it with a plan. Ask him to come and submit a plan at the same time. We can all see it. If it's a basement and a single-story home above that, why would we have a problem? It might fit in. Now, of course, he's going to have to address the fire issues. I don't want my home burning down because, we didn't have the right fire safety requirements. So these are the things that we want. As a neighborhood, it's a lovely neighborhood, but we don't want more large buildings, medium density. We want families to be there. So I just ask, put in, writing the requirement for him to have to basically come back with a plan and not complain about it's going to cost too much, because really that's not going to help us. Thank you, and oppose it for now.
Next will be Victoria Gorman, followed by Marley Bramble, and then Hal Krimmel. Victoria's here in person.
Good evening. Thank you for listening to all this again. I really appreciated listening to the planning or the meeting earlier today and Chris Wharton's comment. In short, if I could sort of repeat his sentiment, just because we're being asked to rezone something doesn't mean that we really need to build on every buildable parcel of land, and that we should use discretion. I think this is a situation in which you all need to listen to the people that are most affected and use your discretion, because this is, while it seems like this is just a rezone for this one person who wants to be a part of this neighborhood, really it's going to affect the entire Sugar House community, which is not affordable housing, okay? Our housing in this immediate area, the houses are going between $600,000 and $900,000. It is not a parcel of land that will be affordable housing for him or for anyone else. Well, he may be able to afford to build there. And I hope that he finds a way to become a part of our community. He owns the duplex there with his mother-in-law or his mother-in-law, so he could become a part of our community. That's not what we're opposed to. We're opposed to changing the density in the zoning in this area. And I really hope that you can consider the very strong lack of support for this rezoning. Thank you.
And next will be Marley Bramble, followed by Hal Krimmel, and then Devin Zander. Marley is here in person.
Good evening. Thank you guys for all being here. I appreciate your time. I'm here to speak on behalf of Anthony's proposed development of this lot. I am a lifelong resident of Wasatch Hollow, which is right next to the Sugar House. I'm actually literally a 12-minute walk from the lot in question. I love my neighborhood deeply. I actually chose to be part of my community council board because I want to give everything to my community. I think that I understand the question of adding duplex or density, higher density building, but this is not what Anthony is actually, his goal is. His goal is to build a single family home, which will allow him to have his family be there. His mom does own the property in front, the duplex that is being discussed, and his sister lives in that duplex. So what they want to do is just bring their family together. It is a pricier neighborhood. I am lucky enough to be in my family home. I don't think that I would be living in the neighborhood if that were not the case. And I think that it's important that there are families who can take advantage of family homes and family properties. I had the opportunity to walk the lot with Anthony. I have seen his vision, and I think that he can pull it off with minimal impact and ultimately will benefit the neighborhood instead of having a vacant lot or an ADU, which may have a revolving door of renters. So thank you for your time.
Next will be Hal Krimmel, followed by Devin Zander. Hal is here in person.
Good evening, Mayor Mendenhall, members of the council. I sent an email to you. Thank you for your service to the city. I have lived in the neighborhood for 22 years and close to a decade on Blaine Avenue. I'm opposed to the rezone, and I support the Planning Commission's decision for a couple of reasons. I think, first off, I just stepped down after a number of years as my university's due process officer, solving about 80 cases a year. I have great faith in the process. This is my fourth hearing in the last couple of years on this particular lot. And so I want to say I don't think this is a hearing about process, and I don't think it's a referendum on the family who owns the lot. It's a question of, do we uphold our zoning or do we not uphold our zoning? And my lot is large enough that I could build a second house on it, as are 4 or 5 of my neighbors. And so the question is, if we go through with this rezone, am I going to be able to do that as well? Will the other neighbors be able to do that as well? My other point is that, again, it's not a referendum on the family, but rather, if this rezone is approved, they could easily sell the lot to someone else who could put up, and I spoke with Kelsey Lindquist, the city planner, on this via email last week. Anyone could put up another house and two more ADUs on that lot, one on each lot, if you were to rezone the lot. That would mean a potential number of 18 people living on what is currently a one lot. That means 18 vehicles somewhere parked. I don't know where they would park. There's 4 spaces in this garage. That means the other 14 would have to be out on the street. So I think it isn't just a question of, should we help out this family, but long-term, do you want to move the zoning to medium density, or do you want it to remain so people like those of us who live on the street can remain in single-family homes and not feel like we're surrounded by medium density housing? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next will be Devin Zander. Devin, you may now unmute.
Hello, I just wanted to speak in support of the planned or the proposed rezoning. As a renter in a single family zoning area, it's quite apparent the lack of housing stock that we have. And I think any opportunity that the city has to, create a new unit, or as the previous person mentioned, potentially multiple units, I think that in the point in time we're at, single family residential zoning is a bit outdated. And a lot of the people who currently reside in single family residential areas have kids who are growing up, and it's a question of, do we want to keep the future generation in Salt Lake, or if we want to keep the limited housing supply, when we have the opportunities to build these missing middle housing, even if somebody is able to sell the lot. I think we should be creating those opportunities. And yeah, there is the question of precedent and what does this set, but I welcome the extra density, the extra residents, the extra neighbors. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say. Thanks.
That was the final registered commenter for this item.
All right. Thank you, everybody who made a comment. I now will look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Puig, seconded by Councilmember Mano. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that passes unanimously. Our final public hearing is item B3 regarding a resolution, which is a resolution for capital improvement program projects. And before we begin taking comments, I'll first turn the time over to Ben Latke, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction.
The Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, is an open and competitive process where residents, local organizations, and city departments submit project applications. This year, there are 61 project applications. The total CIP budget is nearly $40 million. Of that total, $12 million is needed for existing commitments, mostly debt payments on existing bonds. The remaining funds are available for new projects, but as happens every year, the available budget is not enough to fully fund all of the proposed projects. The funding recommendations from the Resident Advisory Board and the Mayor are found in the funding log, which is attachment 2 to the staff report. The council has a webpage for CIP available at tinyurl.com/SLC FY24 CIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 14 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Jennifer Robinson, followed by Sarah Wosley, and then David Troster. Jennifer is here in person.
Hi, everyone. I am Jennifer Robinson. I live on 1983 West Red Angus Drive. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to this application. I appreciate so much the opportunity, and I get to speak with my fellow Lorax as well. I have lived in my home for 17 years, and I have noticed over this course of time so much needing to be improved. And we are in this small little area, and I realize that it is very small in the scope of all of Salt Lake City, but it is very important to my family and I, and to the neighbors that have formed this community that we live in. I have noticed over the course of these years so many improvements being made out and around our area, and yet we get left unnoticed, and it is so disheartening to see all these beautiful improvements taking place just feet from our home and nothing. We have waist-high weeds, we have no trees, we won't even go into the traffic noise, that's another time. But the road conditions are dilapidated. People cannot walk their dogs because there's not a sidewalk in the area. I've taken my child across the other side of the street, and I have to walk into the road where people are going 65 plus miles an hour down that road, and it is dangerous. And so I don't do it. So I don't get out into my community. And it is so unfortunate to be that close, because I live right on the corner, to be able to see it continuously decline and no improvements being made, even though I know I have talked loudly about this, and I know a couple of my neighbors have also, and we just need help. It's insurmountable to do it on the individual basis, and we need your voices to help us improve that area, because unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's just not. Thank you.
Next will be Sarah Woolsey, followed by David Troster, and then Nedra Crow. Sarah is here in person.
Thank you. Sarah Woolsey. I live on Hollywood Avenue, District 7, right in the heart of Sugar House. And I'm here to ask for support for Safe Side Streets Part 2. You were kind enough to fund Safe Side Streets Part 1 in 2021. It's a project that aligns with your goals of traffic calming in all districts, and we need some support to get it over the finish line. It's a 12-block area right between 900 East, 1100 East, 21st South to Garfield Avenue. We have seen significant growth in those streets. You've probably heard of all of them. We've lived through the 900 East improvements, 1100 and Highland are right on our doorstep, and then 2100 South there pushes traffic into our area. We've had a number of accidents, concerns, and we are the second busiest side street neighborhood in District 7. We're happy that our neighbors to the south are getting livable streets attention. We have gotten together as a coalition. Time is of the essence as these projects are at our doorstep, and we have a plan. Transportation is assisted, and we are ready to make those improvements that help hundreds of homes in this area that's seeing a lot of pressure. So we ask for your support for Safe Side Streets Part 2. You voted for us once. Help us get over the finish line, and thank you for your time and attention and for listening.
Next will be David Troster, followed by Nedra Crow, and then Christy Johnson. David is here in person.
Hello, my name is David Troster. I live in Glendale. The city has known for years that septic tanks are failing on 1000 West and 1300 South beside the Jordan River, as documented in a 2021 city report. Failing septic systems are contaminating yards, groundwater, and the Jordan River with sewage water and bacteria, including, according to the State Department of Environmental Quality, harmful levels of E. coli. These septic systems need to be removed. That cannot happen without installation of a main sewer line in this century-old neighborhood. The homes were built from 1920s to the 1950s, and that's the age of the septic tanks. Healthy sanitation is a basic city service for all residents. Sewer installation was approved by the City Council as part of the 2022 Three Creeks West Roadways CIP, and the project is endorsed by the Glendale Community Council. The sewer line should be installed as the first step of CIP construction in this West Side neighborhood. The council agreed to fund this project last August, including sewer installation, but city staff underestimated the cost. I request that the city make good on the full project by allocating the $850,000 requested in this year's CIP process. This will eliminate the health threat in this central Glendale neighborhood and improve the entire area. At the very least, please use the already allocated funds to install the sewer line first in this project, and I will help my neighbors obtain available grants to connect to the sewer line. The alternative is a continued health threat and environmental contamination in this neglected West Side neighborhood. Thank you.
And next will be Nedra Crow, followed by Christy Johnson, and then Fraser Nelson. Nedra is here in person.
Thank you for this process. I'm honored to be here, and I can't imagine the difficulty you have from sewer issues to parks and everything in between. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to talk about the First Encampment Park. It's at the intersection of 5th East, 17th South. It's called First Encampment because 176 years ago, 60 wagons, 120 plus people went and camped there, the first settlement there. There are now boulders there and a park. The park was created by volunteer people and donations. That's amazing to have a city park that was created for that. The city park is represented by boulders, the Rocky Mountains, foothills, and then into the valley. So the park is designed to represent that topography. 120 names are etched onto those rocks of the people who came into this valley. The irrigation system that was created 26 years ago has created problems with the deterioration of the names that are engraved on those rocks. Our CIP application is asking for a change of irrigation. We've lost or are losing 30% of those names. I want to thank everybody from the city, folks who have helped us think about how to deal with our issues with this park, and appreciate the opportunity that you have given us to provide this application. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Christy Johnson, followed by Fraser Nelson, and then Jayla Wolf. Christy, you may now unmute.
Thank you very much for letting me address. I'm also speaking about the First Encampment Park. I'm so appreciative of the fact that there is CIP funding so that throughout our city, there can be improvements that are made to make things better all the way around. And I understand how difficult it is to be able to make that money go farther with everything that needs to happen. As Nedra has pointed out, there are so many things that are of benefit in that park. We are appreciative of the fact that the city and city parks and public lands have worked with us to help get some improvements made and to keep the park fresh and looking good for all of those who do attend from throughout the city and throughout the world who are interested in the founding of Salt Lake City. I am grateful for the historical as well as the community benefit of having green space in that District 5 area. As Nedra pointed out, we need some additional funding. We need some help to address the damaged names on the rocks. There are some that are beautiful and pristine, and then there are some that you can hardly read. We would like the historical value to be maintained so that people can enjoy, come and find their pioneers from among the names that are there. So we do need to work on the sprinkler system and making sure that that gets addressed. And then we're working to get funding to re-etch and re-ink the names that are on the rocks. We appreciate the fact that there's so little and we're having to share that money throughout the city, but we appreciate anything that could be lent our way to be able to make this happen for us. And we appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
And next will be Fraser Nelson, followed by Jayla Wolf, and then Dan Potts. Fraser is here in person.
Hi, thanks so much for having me tonight. My name's Fraser Nelson. I'm a resident of the Ballpark neighborhood and a proud user of the Jefferson Park a couple times a day with my dog Althea. When I was moving to Salt Lake, I went to the Ballpark neighborhood. The park was presented to me as both a benefit of the neighborhood and a concern. A benefit because it's a great place to have, a dog and a great place to meet your neighbors, but a concern because of the crime that is also associated with our park. It's being loved to death, and as you all know, the ballpark is going through a lot of changes. Jefferson Park is the only green space in our neighborhood, And even in the plans that have been passed and that we support at the Ballpark Community Council for increased housing, there are 3 new apartment buildings coming within a block of this park. And the amenities of the park are very, very poor. There's a playground, and that's about it. Our application asks for things that address both the potential of our park, like the potential of our neighborhood, and the concerns that come from this park. We're asking for lighting, which will assist with safety. We're asking for benches, which will give people places to sit under the beautiful trees that the McGillis School put in last year. And we're asking for stationary garbage cans, which we think can help address the problem that we have with unsheltered residents not having places to put their garbage, which is a real concern. I clean up the garbage probably once a day in our park. We really feel that this park has great potential, just like the neighborhood itself, and we appreciate the City Council's work to improve our neighborhood overall, and we think it can begin with this park. So thank you very much for your support.
Next, we will hear from Jayla Wolf, followed by Dan Potts, and then Steve Lemon. Jayla is here in person.
Hi, thank you. Again, my name is Jayla Wolf, and I have a couple of Avenues Pickleball Club members with me here, Hong and Jody. We've been playing at the Avenues courts for a few years. So we're pandemic players. I just want to give a shout out, a thank you to Mayor Mendenhall and Councilman Wharton. They came and visited us for our first Salt Lake Pickleball Festival that we held on July 1st. At the festival, we had the 6 courts that are already, were built in 2017, I believe it is. We also put up 8 portables in order for that festival to take place. We had over 100 pickleballers, ranging from someone who had just borrowed a racket, had played for the first time that day, to those who had been playing for many years and are very skilled, including some pros. We'd love to hold more events like that here in Salt Lake, but it's very difficult, which is why we submitted a proposal to expand the 11th Avenue courts so that they have 4 additional courts. I mean, of course, we'd love more, but we'll start with 4. We also support another pickleball proposal that is for a large court system at Sunnyside. I think a couple of the things that I just want to point out is what's going on with pickleball. Pickleball grew 86% year over year recently. That's an industry statistic. It rings true locally and certainly nationally as well. Just recently, when I went to the Avenues courts over the weekend, there were 36 people on the pickleball courts alone. There's only 6 courts, 36 people. Only 4 can play at a time. So basically, groups of people, 10 would take over one court, and they'd line it sitting, or they bring their chairs and they're waiting, and they kind of take over that court. So I'm just saying it's okay. Well, all I want to say is that Utah is the most pickle-crazed state in the nation. We are the #1 for Google searches. #1. Don't let Naples, Florida, get one over on us. We are #1 in pickle searches, and we would love more courts. I appreciate it.
You can leave more information for us with our staff. Thank you.
Next will be Dan Potts, followed by Stephen Lemon, and then Richard Lehman. Dan is here in person.
Yeah, I'm Dan Potts, and I represent Utah's most historic wildlife organization, a century-old Salt Lake Fish and Game Foundation. I grew up on the west side, and probably I'm best known for all of my publications of wildlife-oriented articles and the fauna of the Jordan River Corridor. 12 years ago, Salt Lake City followed my recommendation of starting the creation of the Fred and Isla Rose Fife Wetland Preserve to mitigate the damages to nature caused by the Red Butte Creek oil spill. Unfortunately, more than a decade later, the city still has not completed that work. We thought our relatively inexpensive proposal, CIP proposal, would result in this special location finally qualifying as a true preserve. Over the years, Salt Lake Fish and Game has supplied recommendations to the city for the required improvements to qualify the area as a preserve. Or should we just change the name? You guys could change the name. It might be easier to just, this functional pocket park is not becoming a preserve. We did apply for a first CIP application, but was denied. But we went back to the drawing board and did a much better proposal that we presented to both the Poplar Grove and Glendale Community Councils to gain their renewed support. But we were disappointed that we still didn't make it into the mayor's preferred list. Previous survey of voters living along the Jordan suggests that more than 2/3 were more supportive of preserving areas for nature than of the continued creation of more sports playfields, etc. Our current proposal mostly recommends the removal of all of the apparent human stuff so that we could attract more neotropical birds for the people. The east side has a preserve. The west side just wants one too. That's all.
Thank you, Pat.
Next will be Stephen Lemon, followed by Richard Lehman, and then Joseph Leba. Stephen, you may now unmute.
Once there lived in faraway Japan a rival being embodied within a beautiful statue named Kwannon, who possessed wisdom and compassion beyond measure. She had attained enlightenment but chose not to enter nirvana until
Hey,
every
Taylor,
joined.
would you stop
Kwannon's
that,
abode
please?
was an exquisite and
I'm not sure what's happening with that.
through it all, Kwannon stood strong, the last vestige.
It appears that they need to troubleshoot for a moment. That appears to be a commercial or an infomercial about
No, it's
blood
not. I have a speech impediment and I can't get done in 2 minutes, so I'm using recording.
Okay, so can you?
And same with my, same with Sean, because it's Chinese English, he'll be using a recording as well. I sent a message.
Okay.
Start over again.
So,
Madam
yeah, go
Chair,
ahead.
Could we reset the clock and then allow this
For sure.
neighbor to share their thoughts? And thank you.
Oh, no problem. Mark?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Please go ahead, Taylor. Restart the clock, and then we'll start with your comments as soon as. Okay. It's restarted. Go ahead.
Once there lived in faraway Japan a remarkable being embodied within a beautiful statue named Kwannon, who possessed wisdom and compassion beyond measure. She had attained enlightenment but chose not to enter nirvana until every being could join her. Kwannon's abode was an exquisite and serene Japanese garden. Alas, the tranquility was shattered when the ravages of war befell the garden twice as American planes unleashed destruction upon it. Through it all, Kwannon stood strong, the last vestige of hope amidst the incinerated flowers. After World War II, her owner yearning for global peace made a selfless decision. He donated Kwannon to the International Peace Gardens in Salt Lake City, a place where diverse cultures converged, and the splendid Japanese garden became Kwannon's new home. Memories of her homeland came flooding back. A moon bridge gracefully arched over a tranquil pond, and 300 cherry trees were planted, a tribute to the lost gift from Japan's children. These original trees, burned by U.S. Customs, were replaced and cherished anew. A tea house once exhibited at the World's Fair in Seattle adorned the garden, inviting visitors to partake in an age-old ritual. Ancient stone lanterns, brought with permission of Douglas MacArthur, illuminated the path. But one fateful night, flames cast their reflection in Kwannon's eyes for a final time. Vandals devoid of understanding and compassion set fire to the beloved tea house, and thieves stole the flowering cherry trees until none was left standing. Kwannon, the steadfast goddess of peace, wept for the garden's plight and herself vanished, leaving behind an empty void. Might the members of City Council awaken and join Kwannon in her enlightened state? Would they fund the CIP application to restore the garden to its post-war elegance, rebuild the tea house, and replant the 300 cherry trees? Could they apologize to our Japanese communities for unjustified neglect by taking action to restore the Japanese garden, creating a nirvana on earth for all Salt Lake residents?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Richard Lehman, followed by Joseph Leba, and then Jim Webster. Richard is here in person.
Hello, I'm on the Sugar House Park Authority,
and the park's owned jointly by the city and county. I joke that means the city say it's a county park and the county says it's a city park. Creates some issues for capital funding, especially because in the last 16 months, a majority of our board has changed, and that's caused some problems with maintaining continuity in capital planning, also because the city and county have different fiscal years and calendars, and we hadn't figured out until about 6 weeks ago on how to resolve that going forward. That doesn't help us for tonight. We're coming in with a late ask. The city finance office will be transmitting it. We're in this position of asking for $125,000 for 2 studies, one primarily for replacement of the Sugar House Garden Center. The reason this is an extraordinary, necessary, late ask is because of ZAP. ZAP will be renewed in 2024, and then in 2025, they'll accept capital improvement proposals. You can't participate in that process without a plan. We need it in order to be able to move forward with that, and that helps to reduce the demand on the city that we would ask for replacing that asset, which could be anywhere between $2 and $5 million, something that cost less than $25,000 when it was built 60 years ago. We will be reaching out to Councilmember Young. She's, easing into things, and we didn't want to burden her at the very beginning. But we hope that you will consider this, thinking about it in terms of how it can reduce capital demands on the city going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Joseph Leba, followed by Jim Webster, and then Suzanne Stensas. Joseph is here in person.
Good evening, Mayor Mendenhall and council members. I'm Joseph Leba, and I am a resident of the Central Ninth neighborhood. I am secretary for the Central Ninth Community Council Board. I have a small business in the Central Ninth neighborhood, and I'm an engineer and a cat dad. I'm here to support the Central Ninth CIP application, which is requesting 2 things: a Central Ninth branding, as well as permanent trash cans along Harvey Milk Boulevard. So let's talk about branding first. When Central Ninth was named as part of the RDA project area, we had circular planters, banner arms, and banners with the Central Ninth branding. Those have been removed. Cameron Smith from Infinite Scale is donating the new branding and logo design, but we need funds to replace the physical signage that was removed. The permanent trash cans is the next topic. The Central Ninth has been undergoing significant redevelopment since it was sponsored by the RDA. And the construction's wrapping up, and we're very excited to reopen the area, including we're having a block party soon. A green space walkway was installed along Harvey Milk Boulevard on 900 South as part of the plan. In addition to the landscaping, the bike lanes will create a lasting and meaningful positive impact for the residents, the businesses, and the visitors. The landscaped streetscape is separated from Jefferson Park due to the 900 South on-ramp and is presently the only green space accessible to those in the area. The original plan included trash cans, but they were removed from the budget. The nine-lane trail and additional infrastructure creates a high-density area with heavy foot traffic. It is for all those reasons that trash cans are necessary and why we are seeking the CIP funding. The city has 2 models for trash removal: maintained and not maintained. The trash maintenance in the central business district area are maintained by the city, and this is great. That area feels clean and maintained. The trash cans in the 9th and 9th area,
Thank you.
so trash cans, we're looking for trash cans, and then hopefully we can also figure out a solution for maintenance for the trash cans.
Thank you. You submit those comments online as well. Send us an email, please.
I will email them over.
All right, great.
Next will be Jim Webster, followed by Suzanne Stensas, and then Shinan Hong. Jim is here in person.
My name is Jim Webster. I'm a landscape architect. I lived on Military Drive adjacent to Miller Park for the last 48 years. I'm here to reiterate what I think we could learn from my experience and the experience of Yale Crest with respect to the CIP that I wrote 7 years ago that is still in abeyance. It still hasn't been executed. The terminology that is used is often as renovation. I would like to also include the word restoration. I submitted a CIP application that was funded by Mayor Biskupski to restore a pathway down by the creek that had been there for 35 years. After the Chevron oil spill, the city came in and destroyed that, demolished it, widened the channel. Subsequently, we have problems ranging from everything from mosquito habitat to erosion, the destabilization of historic WPA walls and so forth. My CIP proposal, and I realize it's not a current one, but I think we can learn from this. It was very simple. All I asked for was what the neighborhood petitioned. It was signed by people like Jake Garn, Randy Horiuchi, some of those names you may remember. The city did nothing with that. We submitted a second proposal, or a second petition. That was ignored as well. All I wanted to do was restore a loop, very simple, restore a loop that has the capacity of being ADA compliant. And the third component of that was to stabilize the historic WPA wall, which is literally falling down. The city's response is 12 projects, none of which have anything whatsoever to do with my CIP application. I have yet to receive any communication from Public Lands as the applicant. Hopefully we can learn from this experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Suzanne Stensas, followed by Xian Huang. Suzanne is here in person.
Thank you. Suzanne Stensas on Linwood Drive. I live in District 6, and I have a proposal for District 7. Or have I got it backwards? No, I have it backwards. I live in Sugar House, but my proposal is for District 6, Dan Dugan's. Because for many years I commuted to the University of Utah on foot, on car, and bicycle along Foothill, and I'm well aware of the dangerous conditions. And this proposal came out of a study that I was involved with the city, funded by multiple organizations, called Implementation of Safety Enhancements for the West Side of Foothill Drive. This was part of a study that was never implemented, and anybody who knows Foothill knows the problems. This proposal was for 5 streets that come off obliquely off of Foothill at a high speed. People are going 45 miles an hour, and you go right into the neighborhoods. They are coming off obliquely. Most of these were to slow the traffic and calm them. But the most important one, and which if your funds are limited, I would dearly like you to fund, is where 3 streets come together. Blaine and 2500 East and Foothill. The reason is that on 2500 is Beacon Heights School, an elementary school, and that needs to be safe, and the Blaine abuts it, and cars are coming off very quickly. I realize that this is a request when you don't have a lot of money. Sewers are really important. I think the process is fair that you're going through. I appreciate the effort everybody has put into this. But if there is any money left over, the funding of these 5 intersections would be much appreciated. If there's just a small amount of money, the school is the most important.
Thank you.
So thank you. Hope you can
think
to safety for our children and our neighbors.
Thank you.
Next will be Xian Huang. Xian, you may now unmute.
Uh-oh.
Give me just a moment, Madam Chair. Let me
Sounds
troubleshoot.
good. We're going to take just a moment while that is solved.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
since there is some technical problems, is it possible? That was the last comment?
Taylor, was that the last comment?
That's correct.
Oh, I was hoping that we can,
Take a break.
give that time
Oh.
to the other person
Okay.
until they resolve that issue.
All right. We're still on break until that is resolved.
You could go ahead and consider your agenda items if you wanted to.
Okay.
And come back to this speaker.
This public hearing is continued anyhow. So
Right.
can't we just move on and then have this come back in the next time that it's scheduled for August 8th?
Yes, it might be a nice courtesy to take this person's comment, though, if it's a technical issue
Okay.
on our side or something. But you can certainly go ahead with your other business.
Okay,
And
with
then
the
Taylor
rest of
can
the
tell us
business.
what, we could put the person into the general comment period or something like that, give them that option.
All right. So we may make a motion. That's what you're saying, and then add that comment during the general part. Okay.
Yeah,
All
so you
right.
can proceed with your
So
business.
we're not on a break anymore.
Okay,
So I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council continue the public hearing to August 8th.
Second. I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, seconded by Councilmember Puig. Is there any other discussion?
I think it was Young.
Was it Young?
Yeah.
Sorry, I heard both at the same time. I just chose. Anyway, by Councilmember Young, that was seconded by Councilmember Young. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. And we will pause for a moment before our next item, which is C1, while Councilmember Mano steps out of the room.
Yes, thanks. I'm recused from the next item.
All right. This brings us to potential action item C1 regarding an ordinance, which is to rezone. It's a rezone at approximately 1350, 1358, and 1370 Southwest Temple.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I move that the council adopt the ordinance with the condition that the petitioner enters a development agreement with the city that includes the following requirements. A minimum 60% of the ground floor street-facing space shall be occupied by retail goods establishments, retail service establishments, public service portions of businesses, restaurants, taverns, brew pubs, bar establishments, art galleries, theaters, or performing art facilities, and or other uses intended to attract visitors to the property. The remaining required space will be used for tenant amenities other than parking, example, leasing office, mailroom, gym, etc. A minimum of 10% of the dwelling units shall be designed for a minimum of 15 years to be leased exclusively to individuals and families earning up to 80% of the area median income.
Second.
Okay, I have a moment. One moment. It's been moved by Councilmember Puig, seconded by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'm an aye. And that motion passes 6-0 with one Councilmember Mano, being absent. Councilmember Mano, you may enter the room again. Our next item, C2, regarding a zoning map and master plan amendment at Riverside Cottages. I will look for a motion. Item C2.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Puri, seconded by Councilmember Mano. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. That passes unanimously, 7-0. Our next item, C3, regarding rezone at 1549 South, 1551 South, 1565 South, 1000 West, and 1574 South, 900 West.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pui, seconded by Councilmember Mano. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. That passes unanimously, 7-0. Our next item, C4, regarding a rezone at approximately 510 South, 200 West. I'll look for a motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Pui and seconded by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm an aye. That passes unanimously, 7-0. And our next item, C5, regarding an ordinance that would amend various sections of Title 21A of the Salt Lake City Code pertaining to non-conforming signs. I look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance, and I further move that the council adopt a legislative action initiating a petition to review electronic sign standards to comply with changes to federal and state law, and to provide recommendations to the council on best practices for concerning such as brightness, dwell and twirl times, animation, etc.
Second.
So moved by Councilmember Dugan and seconded by Councilmember Pui. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously, 7-0. We are at our section D, which is comments and also questions to the mayor from the city council. Are there any questions for the mayor? No, thank you, Mayor, for being here. We are now at our general comment portion of our agenda. As a reminder for those joining in Zoom, Isaac Canedo from our staff will moderate our Zoom and will message you with any questions about your registration. Staff is handling many tasks, so please limit messages to technical issues and minimal information updates. If you do not need to speak with our staff, If you do need to speak with our staff, please select Isaac Canedo from the list of participants. If you need to, please raise your hand in Zoom to indicate that you need something from the host. Taylor Hill on our staff will be calling those who wish to comment based on the order of registration or received comment cards. If you're on Zoom, please unmute your mic when Taylor calls your name. After the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you're unable to finish your comment, please send the rest via email, mail, or call our office. Taylor, you can begin with our first general comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 2 people registered for general comment. The first will be Xian Hong, followed by Keiko Jones. Xian, you may now unmute.
Sean Juan here to emphasize how important CIP funding is to International Peace Gardens from sister cities' perspectives. The gardens hold great historical and cultural significance, representing the strong bonds we share with our sister cities around the world. Dozens of plaques and art objects were generously bestowed upon us by our sister cities, symbolizing the connections we have forged across borders and cultures. However, it pains me to say that many of these precious gifts have been stolen or left in a state of disrepair and even condemned and destroyed by the city. As a Taiwanese immigrant, it deeply saddens and embarrasses me to witness the year-after-year neglect and lack of restoration of the male marble Chinese lion given by our sister city Keelung, whose teeth were broken by vandals in their attempt to extract the ball from his mouth. A damaged lion is believed to bring bad luck to the whole Chinese community. Until last year, the Russian garden had a statue of two girls playing cat's cradle, to match an identical one in our sister city in Ukraine. Unfortunately, the theft of this $18,000 bronze last year raises questions about why it didn't receive more publicity, especially given the current concerns surrounding Ukraine. Our sister city of Matsumoto planted 25 flowering cherry trees 40 years ago. Due to not being treated for disease, a mere 5 of these trees remain for the 65th celebration next Monday, to the vexation of the Japanese consulate. It is in these gardens that we celebrate our shared humanity and cultivate relationships that transcend borders. But today, our gardens stand as a shadow of their former glory, a reflection of neglect and lost opportunities. We cannot allow the theft of these treasures and the deterioration of our gardens' aesthetics to dampen our spirits and tarnish the bonds we have built with our sister cities. Therefore, I would like you to recognize the urgency of this matter and approve the CIP, including security technologies for the restoration of the International Peace Gardens. Let us be the custodians of a legacy that has the power to bring people together. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I exercise a point of privilege?
Yes, go ahead.
There is a process, and this garden is very dear to my heart. I cannot stop talking about the gardens, and probably all of you have heard how much this is important to me. But the comments to the CIP should be under the comments in that item. Comments in the general. This section of the comments should not relate to items discussed before.
Okay.
I think it's important clarification for those comments to follow. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. All right. Next comment.
Next will be Keiko Jones, who is here in person.
Hi, council members and mayor. I appreciate your hard work and leadership. A week ago, I heard a West Side resident, Angela Morgan, expressing her concerns about this mini sanctioned camps. And I share the similar concerns. I don't know how many residents know about this plan, but I heard Councilmember Petro speaking to the Rose Park Community Council. And my biggest concern is that the city is handing over the responsibility of running such campsites, overseeing day-to-day operations to private entities. These people are not Andrew Johnston or Joseph Ramos or Michelle Hoon. There are people like Keiko Jones and Joe the Plumber. And to make even a dent in unsanctioned camps, how many such camps do we need? And if the business wants to host, but if the residents around it are opposed, what will happen? I understand something needs to happen, but not this. This is like putting a bandage on a leaking pipe. And I hope we can come up with a solution that's more permanent than this. And please talk to the community leaders and, in your district. And $500,000 sounds like a lot, but I know it won't stretch much. And I want to say, I'm sorry, Mayor. A lot of people blame everything, blame you for everything they don't like about the city. So I'm sorry.
Thanks, Keiko.
And that was the final registered commenter.
All right. Thank you to everybody that made a comment. Oh, I have somebody with their hand up. Is our staff member? Would you like to help him with a comment card, please? One moment. He's going to give you a card.
Yeah, but he can go ahead and testify and then complete.
You can come over to this.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Come on over. in the meanwhile.
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. And he can just complete the card as soon as he's finished.
Okay. I'm Robert Comstock. I've been coming to these council meetings since 1995, as much as possible. First, I want to thank Councilman Mano, you and Jenna Benson and Joshua. I knew his last name very well, Josh, for coming to our neighborhood. Your visit, Councilman, and others that do this for other neighborhoods encouraged dozens of people. Your understanding of the homelessness issues greatly encouraged me and Barbara Green and all the people that care about these unsheltered folks. I hope you continue to keep an eye there. Thank you for the Salt Lake City Police Department and patrolling that. I know we all share the burden of the unsheltered. Can I just speak about, I've been here 47 years, and the rezoning. It makes me weep what has happened to our city. Please don't continue destroying single-family homes in our neighborhoods. Please. There was a time when you talked about livable, walkable neighborhoods with Councilman Soren Simonson and these wonderful centers of 15th East and 9th and 9th and right in the center of Sugar House where there are fairs and celebrations. If you allow those to be destroyed by large multiple family units and zero lot clearance on 21st South, please don't let Salt Lake City be taken over by development. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, that was our last comment, so thank you. We have no new businesses under item E, so we're moving on to item F, unfinished business. Which is an item, F1, regarding a resolution addendum number 7 to the interlocal agreement with Utah Transit Authority, or UTA, for Transit Master Plan frequent bus service routes implementation. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the resolution authorizing addendum number 7 to the interlocal agreement with the Utah Transit Authority.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, seconded by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye, and that passes unanimously. Next item is F2, regarding a resolution as well for the Community Renewable Energy Program Utility Agreement. I look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Dugan, seconded by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye, and that passes unanimously. We are at our portion G, which is the consent portion of our agenda. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Pui, seconded by Councilmember Wharton. Those in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That passes unanimously 7-0. So this concludes our Salt Lake City Council meeting, and the council's formal meeting now stands adjourned.